So good evening, people. This is our new lesson because I want to move forward and I want you to continue writing. So let me share my screen. There you go. Okay. Slideshow, please. There. All right. So our new lesson is entitled Writing Research Hypothesis. Okay, let's move on. So the objectives for today's lesson is to define research hypothesis, discuss its different types, and discuss the guidelines in writing it. Okay, so the research hypothesis is hypothesis for singular and hypothesis for plural if marami. Okay, so it states a tentative answer to your research question that can be tested by further investigation in which you can support or refute through scientific research methods such as data collection and statistical analysis. So this part comes after the writing of the research question. So kung may tanong, meron tayong inaasahang sagot. And yung inaasahang sagot, yung statement na yun, that is our hypothesis. So that's why it's called tentative answer. Sometimes we say that hypothesis is an educated guess. Educated guess because we know that we are going to test if the hypothesis is going to be correct. Okay? So hindi lang siya hinulaan lang, kundi alam natin na we will gather data and analyze this data for us to test if the hypothesis is going to be correct. Okay? So these are the types of hypothesis. So actually there are 13 types, but I just chose the most important ones and I grouped them according to their similarities and contrasting characteristics. So for example, number 1 here is simple hypothesis. So simple hypothesis is hypothesis that predicts a correlation between two test variables. And these variables are independent and dependent variable. So kapag ang isang hypothesis ay merong isang independent and isang dependent variable, that's called simple. That's like our example here. The higher the poverty rate, so poverty rate is one independent variable, the higher the number would be out of school youth. So that's one dependent variable. So kapag may tig-isa lang sa isang hypothesis, tig-isang IV and DV, then that's simple. On the contrary, complex hypothesis is composing of more than one independent variables and dependent variables. So say, for example, eating more vegetables and fresh fruits, so dalawang independent yan, vegetable and fruit, leads to boost immune system, one dependent variable, enhance blood circulation, another dependent variable, and digestion, another dependent variable. So if there's more than one independent and dependent variable, that's complex hypothesis, okay? All right, but we don't usually do that, okay? Anyways, the next one is what we call the empirical hypothesis. Empirical hypothesis, also called as the working hypothesis. So yung gagawin natin, it's also known as empirical. Empirical because we are going to determine the relationship or difference and test this hypothesis using observation, experiment, and in our case, via surveying. Okay, so that's why what we're gonna do is an empirical hypothesis. So hindi masasagot kung hindi natin iti-test, mag-observe, mag-experiment, or mag-survey. Okay, so katulad ng plants watered every day grow faster than plants watered once a week. So this is empirical because we have know this already because we have observed this already. So na-test na to ilang beses na. On the contrary, the logical hypothesis expresses explanation with limited evidence that can be verified logically. So iniisip lang natin to, logical lang, hindi natin matetest. Just like our example here, tomato plants bear fruits faster in earth than in moon. So since wala pa talagang nakapag-test ng pagtatanim sa moon, we will just say this as logical explanation na hindi kaya ng soil ng moon mag-grow ng plants, something like that. So it's just logical. Okay? Hindi pa natin na-test. Hindi yan matetest. But iniisip lang natin na ito siya, it's true because logically thinking, it's true. Okay? The next ones are directional hypothesis and non-directional hypothesis. So when we say directional hypothesis, it can predict the positivity and negativity of the effect of an intervention prior to the test. So dito pinapakita natin sa hypothesis kung meron bang positive na nangyari or negative change or may increase and decrease ba. Katulad ng sample natin, students who are eating nutritious foods have higher, so may salitang higher grades than students having not having proper meals. So dahil sa may salitang higher, that's directional hypothesis. Tinuturo niya na kung ipinipredict mo kung saang direction papunta yung study mo, kung tataas ba or bababa. Meanwhile, on the other hand, non-directional hypothesis is not telling you the positivity and negativity, the effect if if there will be decrease or increase. Sasabihin lang din there is change, there is significant difference, there is relationship, but we don't know the positivity and negativity, how strong or how high or low. Okay? So, ayan po yung non-directional. Meanwhile, for the last two, ito yung talagang ipapasulat ko sa inyo, the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. The null hypothesis is a symbol of HO. That could also have a symbol of H0. And the alternative hypothesis has a symbol of HA or H1. So in our case, gagamitin natin yung HO and HA. So what's the difference? Null hypothesis will predict that there will be no significant relationship between the two test variables. So ina-assume natin na wala, invalid. So laging tayo magsisimula dyan. Yan yung bida. Sa dalawang hypothesis na yan, mas bida at lagi natin tinetest yung null hypothesis. We assume that there is no. So parang katulad yan ng innocent until proven guilty. So, hindi muna. Okay? So, katulad ng, ayan, there is no statistically significant difference in political views between carpenters and plumbers. So, in-expect natin na wala. Yun yung lagi nating unang assumption natin palagi wala. Katulad ng yung isang study sa isang group ninyo na procrastination in its relation to academic performance. So, ina-assume natin that there will be no significant relationship between the two. There should be a prior assumption that there is no relationship. Now, kapag later on, nakapag-gather tayo ng data, nakapag-analyze tayo using statistics, at nalaman natin that there is a relationship, then i-reject natin yung null hypothesis. But again, the first assumption should be there's no relationship. Yun yung gusto natin na malaman, yung gusto natin masagot, there's no relationship. No? By the way, these two last types of hypotheses are also known as statistical hypotheses because these two are tested by using statistical treatment. So on the other hand, the alternative hypothesis or HA is the opposite of HO. So ang makikita nyo, ang difference lang yan, yung salitang no. So for alternative hypothesis, kabaliktaran nga siya ng null, so wala na yung salitang no. So there is a statistically significant difference in political views between carpenters and plumbers. Okay, so ito yung dalawang ipagagawa ko sa next PT natin. Alright, so I just would like to teach you the writing guide for your hypothesis. Natatakpan kasi hindi ko makita. So of course, kailangan may pagbabasihan tayo niyan. And the main basis ng inyong hypothesis will be your research question. So your research question should be final and corrected already by me, of course. Dahil kapag hindi pa yan final and hindi pa yan corrected, you cannot form your correct research hypothesis, okay? And of course, you cannot do the research question, you cannot create research question, and you cannot create hypothesis without doing the background research first or the preliminary research, which I ask you to do. Okay, so dapat mag-search muna kayo ng mga RRL or related journals or studies na nagsasabi that these variables are related or there's an impact or effect on each other. Pag nasabi ng mga related studies na may ganon, so most probably, ganun na rin yung maging hypothesis nyo. So may meron kayong pinagbabasihan, okay? And also, kailangan alam niyo yung variables nyo at kilala niyo yung variables. You can define your variables. Marami sa inyo hindi nyo alam pa yung mga variables nyo. Napansin ko yun because as I read your work, alam niyo yung variables sa title, but as I read your work sa gitna, nakakakita ako, nag-introduce kayo ng bagong variable na hindi ko naman kailangan sa paper niyo. So I hope you are sure and you know your variables well because the variables are the main ingredients of hypothesis. Okay? Sa number 4, you choose your hypothesis type. No, huwag na kayo mamili ng type because your type will be the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. And of course, you are to write your hypothesis in our performance task number 4. So tips for writing effective hypothesis. Of course, we are to use clear language. Kung gaano kaklaro yung research question natin, ganun din kaklaro dapat ang hypothesis. It should be specific. Ensure testability, kailangan natetest siya. And focus on one relationship. So one hypothesis should only include one relationship. So dalawang variable lang lagi ang included doon. Kung meron kayong 3 variables in your paper, you will create another hypothesis for another 2 variables that you are going to test relationship. And lastly, it should be measurable. Kaya nga, lagi kong tinatanong pag nagko-comment ako sa paper nyo, are you sure is this measurable? How are you gonna measure it? Kasi dapat, yung mga variables nyo na may measure siya because it's, nonsense na mag-determine ng isang variable na hindi niya naman kayang i-measure. Okay? So, dapat po ay measurable siya. By means of course, standardized questionnaires and scales. Okay? So for our example, ito ulit yung example natin, hindi na ako malis dito para magets nyo. Learning modalities and learning styles of senior high school students. So again, the first paragraph here is the SOP, and we have here the specific research questions. So as you can see in the 3 research questions, only the last one was highlighted and only the last one was given the hypothesis. So bakit? Kasi yung first 2 questions, these are descriptive type of research questions. So nagde-describe lang what are the different modalities, what are the various learning style. So hindi tayo makaka-create ng hypothesis dyan. Only the third one can be, we can create hypothesis for the third one. Is there a significant relationship between the different learning delivery modes of the school and learning styles? And take a look at the hypothesis here. For the null hypothesis HO, i-rewrite lang natin yung tanong in a declarative form. So as you can see, is there significant relationship? Naging there is no significant relationship. Kinopy ko lang lahat ng words na yan. I've changed the is there to there is and nilagyan ko ng no to make it null hypothesis. And then I ended with a period because it's a declarative sentence. Okay, so pinapakita lang natin na yung sagot natin sa number 3, ina-assume natin that there is no significant relationship. And for our alternative hypothesis, all you need to do is to copy and just remove the word no, and that's gonna be your alternative hypothesis. So ganun lang kadaling gumawa ng hypothesis sa ating next PT or performance task. Basta make it sure na final na, validated, corrected na yung inyong mga research questions because you cannot create hypothesis without the corrected, approved research questions. Is that clear? I hope you have learned something from today's video. Thank you for watching, guys. Stop share ako. All right, bye-bye.